live right now, and
All right.
we are still in our little prep zone right here.
Okay.
I am going to do the one piece that I didn't remember to do yet, which is to read your bio. So
okay. So Pocatello is actually in eastern Idaho, real quick.
I was right north of you, or was it north? I was north of you in Idaho Falls about a year ago. Beautiful country.
Yep, about an hour, 50 miles or so. Yep.
And then we went to Yellowstone, and then we kind of circumvented Pocatello, went south, and then flew out of Salt Lake. So what's that?
You drove right through us. You drove right through us.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yep. You would have, if you went down I-15, you would have drove.
But we didn't. We went through. We went south through like the Star Valley, and then on side roads. We went down that way. So yeah, we circumvented you a little bit. But Logan, we're not live. We're Facebook Live, but we're not recording live. I'm going to practice your bio. Logan McDougall is the Public Information Officer for the city of Pocatello, Idaho. While at the city, he chaired the Flag Design Ad Hoc Committee, which is important for reasons we will get into. The group led the worldwide effort to raise a new flag for Pocatello after a 2015 TED Talk called out the city for having the, and I quote, the worst city flag in North America, end quote. All right, so we're going to... Oh, this is gonna be fun. Let's Eddie. We got we're attracting a couple of eyes on Facebook Live with this, so this is gonna be meta.
Hello.
I am this is great, and I watched the not Rowan. Who was the gentleman's name? I clipped it out, but I watched that talk.
Yep, Roman Mars.
Mars. Okay.
Yep. He's a radio host and he's a podcaster. He does 99% Invisible.
Yeah,
pretty cool stuff.
All right. As much as I'm tempted to just get into all that, we're going to go live here. Right. We're not going to dilute this. This is going to be a fun interview. Okay. And you're obviously you're a good sport with all of this. This is kind of the reason that you're on. You did a counter talk about all that. All right. I am in danger of veering off here. Okay. All right. We are live in 3, 2. We are live with Logan McDougall. Logan, are you ready to talk?
I am.
Logan McDougall is the Public Information Officer for the city of Pocatello, Idaho. While at the city, he's chaired the Flag Design Ad Hoc Committee. The group led the worldwide effort to raise a new flag for Pocatello after a very controversial 2015 TED Talk called out the city for having, and I quote, the worst city flag in North America, end quote. This is going to be a very meta conversation because this is about a TED Talk embedded in a TED Talk. Logan McDougall, welcome to the talk.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
Your talk is obviously entitled How Designing a Flag Defined Pocatello. So we're going to be I just want to give the city the benefit of the doubt. You guys didn't know this was coming. You didn't know that you were going to be the end, I'll just call it the butt of the joke, at the very end of not a TEDx talk, but a TED Talk, a very, very high-profile TED Talk with famed podcaster Roman Mars, in which he's talking about flag design. This guy went after the city of San Francisco for their flag. I mean, so you're in good company. I mean, I would think with Apple and everything else, Silicon Valley, I would think San Francisco would be safe from the scourge of design critics. So it's with that in mind that I'm just going to ask you, Logan, just take us behind the talk.
Well, really the whole thing started after Roman's TED Talk in 2015. I didn't see it until 5 to 6 months after it had come out. We had some local residents who saw the talk and said, we have to do something about this flag. We cannot let this stand. We cannot go on with having
Pocatello must have a response to this injustice.
Yeah, so it was driven by local residents. And like I said, I didn't see the talk until a while after it. They came in, they talked to myself and the mayor of Pocatello here, Brian Bladd. They talked with us, and I went back and I watched the TED Talk, and I knew exactly what was coming. I knew we were the butt end of a joke. It's coming. It's going to happen. And Roman beautifully makes the case for good flags. He does an amazing job of walking you through flag design. And then so when you get to the end and you see them bring up our now former flag, I mean, it stung. It still stings. It still hurts thinking about it today. Fast forward, we formed the flag design ad hoc committee that spring, and we go through this whole flag design process. And our goal wasn't to actually design the flag. It was to shepherd the process and to kind of guide it along its way. We didn't want to, just the group of us designed the flag. We wanted everyone to be involved. It's a municipal symbol. It's a city symbol, so we wanted as many people to be involved in the process. We go through that. We end up taking submissions from around the world, and we get 709 designs from 26 different countries and 31 different U.S. states. It was much bigger than any one of us had anticipated, and the example I always use is we wanted to display all the flags at the library here in Pocatello. So I was working with them to set up the display. They came back with a number. Okay, we can just print out the entry forms and it'll be 500 and something. Well, we end up with our 709, and we have to completely revamp the library display and do things completely differently there. But yeah, it just became a very large and very big and very involved process. We went through the public comment periods, and then finally in July of last year recommended the design you see behind me here as the recommendation for the new flag for Pocatello. In July, the City Council voted and adopted the flag by resolution, and in September, we raised that new flag for Pocatello.
So there's a new day in Pocatello, and there's a new flag to go on with the new day.
Yes, there is.
So my audio person's going to edit this piece out. I don't know if you're tapping a desk or doing something like that. I can hear you're really excited, and I'm hearing this big thump. So my audio guy will cut this out. But all
right. Hands off the desk.
Yeah. It is a new day in Pocatello. Really, we're talking, this is about civic pride. And I'm going to make a little disclosure here for all of my friends that knew me when I went to college in the wonderful city of Cleveland, Ohio, which is known for being another town, especially prior to LeBron James and the Republican National Committee events there and being a deciding state in presidential elections. But it's certainly, I mean, the Cleveland Browns still having a really, really rough time. So I have lived in a city myself for over a decade. And then I left that city to go to Philadelphia, which up until, this year with the Eagles winning, we weren't, and maybe about 10 years ago with the Phillies winning, we were kind of a tough sports town as well. There's something that happens to the soul of the residents of a city when the comedians just keep taking pot shots at them. And I mean, it was scorching, this TED Talk. You got to watch it by Roman Mars, and I love how Logan masterfully sets this up, because it wasn't mentioned yet. It wasn't mentioned yet, and you just knew that it was coming right at the very end. And he lowered the boom, and I love that you took action about it. So kudos to your mayor, kudos to you, kudos to the town council. What was it like? Was it kind of fighting words right out of the gate? Was there kind of a critical mass of outrage and counter outrage against the outrage against your flag, or did there need to be a little bit of liaising behind the scenes to be able to do something about it, or was there kind of a mandate once this TED Talk hit the throwdown?
I think it kind of flew under the radar to a certain extent, but the people who got involved early on, a gal by the name of Casey Bjorkia and another gentleman here in town, Arlo Luke, they're very proud of Pocatello and the town that they call home. And so having them see it and then bring it to our attention, and really they were the drivers behind it. And like I said, I hadn't seen it until they had brought it to my attention. But yeah, they really pushed it and said, we got to do something about this. This can be a really, really good rallying point for the city. And a lot of the credit goes to Arlo. He recognized the story in this whole thing, in that, no one cares about second to the last or third from last. What they care about is dead last. And we now have this gift, and he kept calling it a gift, and I didn't see it for a while, but now I completely do, that we have this gift of being named dead last. Now we can do something about it and really, further Pocatello and tell our story. I mean, we had CBS Sunday Morning. They came out and did a story with us a week after forming the flag design ad hoc committee. I mean, we were getting national attention right out the gate.
Wow.
Roman even attended our very first meeting, and he was happy that we took the joke as it was intended. And
so he came out. He gives the TED talk. He flew out to Pocatello to cheer you on after he some might say baited you by ranking you dead last and keeping that the way that he did. He actually flew out and cheered you on.
Yeah, and it was the North American Vexillological Association who rated us dead last. It's a group of flag experts here in North America, and they did a survey.
What?
Vexillologists is the.
Vexillologists, okay.
Yeah, and vexillology.
Talk Universe, it's a thing. Vexillology is the study of map making, or flag making. Cartography is the study of map making. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it just went from there.
Yeah. It went from there, and talking with Roman and his insight at that first meeting, he had mentioned that government buy-in was a huge hurdle in this process, and we already had that by this becoming a city committee, and we had cleared one of the biggest hurdles right away, and so just from there it just kind of snowballed, and like I mentioned earlier, it just became this bigger and bigger thing.
Sometimes I'm able to browse several of these talks, and I reach out to certain people, and I remember seeing your talk and hoping that hoping that you would respond to this so that we could really get the backstory. So, Logan McDougall, thank you so much for all of this. So we've had a lot of fun with the backstory of the town and the city and the flag and everything else. But part of the reason that we're here, big part, is for You Talk Universe. We want to learn. Maybe your town has been slandered in some way, and you need maybe there's been a TED Talk that has outed your town for something, and you need to spread the idea and step up and give a counter talk to expose how the other talk is outdated and you have an improved situation. So what we're going to do right now with Logan is I'm going to ask him a series of either-or questions. It is time for the Blitz round. Are you ready, Logan?
I am.
All right. Well, were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
So it still wasn't a shoo-in. He still had to apply.
Yep. Apply, audition.
After all of this stuff and a TED Talk being made, basically you could call it a trash talk, perhaps. As far as Pocatello is concerned, it's not a TED Talk; it's a trash talk.
But at the same time, it spurred some positive change in our community. I can't say it's a trash talk per se, but there's an element of trash talk.
It was a trash talking TED Talk. So
there we go.
Logan, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
Mostly memorizer, I would say, probably 95%, and then maybe spur of the moment, improviser rather, in the moment.
Did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
A little bit of both. I was nervous leading right up to the talk. The best thing I probably did leading into the talk was I was doing some practicing backstage and was fumbling all over myself. I kept saying to myself, you know this, you got this. Why are you screwing up? So I finally just put the talk down, stopped practicing, put in my headphones, and just sat and hung out for a while. So that helped calm the nerves, that helped bring everything into focus, and then went out there and gave the talk, and it was a blast.
What was the impact in the room of your talk?
People thought it was it was funnier than I thought. They were laughing in spots I didn't think were that funny. They may have been slightly funny, but they found them very funny. So it made people laugh. It was a fun talk, and you mentioned it. It's a fun topic to be a part of. It's not a heavy topic. It's just a feel-good type thing.
Well, was it far enough away from home? It was at TEDx Idaho Falls, which is about an hour up the road. So it's a safe distance to to be able to have a nice laugh about the whole situation. Do you think it would have been a little different if it was TEDx Pocatello?
Maybe. There was some folks from Pocatello there. I know that.
Yeah.
There were some fellow members of the committee there. They saw it. They thought it was great. But yeah, like I said, it was more funny than I personally thought it was. So it was a bonus. It was a good thing.
What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
Chris Anderson's book, TED Talks. That is huge. I cannot recommend that book enough. If you're looking to do a talk, read that book. It really changed how I approached it, and in structuring it, because TED is a very different form. They're looking for something very different, and to understand that more, it really helped me put together the talk. And another thing too would be have a good coach. I had one of our ad hoc committee members. She gave a TEDx talk a couple of years ago. So bouncing ideas back and forth off her and sending revisions and edits, she really knew the form, so she could help walk me through it and explain things in a good way and more along those TED lines.
This is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Probably a little bit of the raw stuff. I wanted to mention, CBS and the national attention we got during the process, but at the same, in Chris Anderson's book, you have to make every sentence matter. Well, really, that didn't matter. It didn't further the story, so it had to go. And so it just went, and it's honestly a better talk because it got cut. So
Talk Universe, lesson learned there. Cut out the victory lap. Cut out the told you so's and the any of those extra things. Just try to carve it out. So congratulations on doing that. That must have hurt a lot. To cut that out, Logan. Well, good. Well, that's why we're talking behind the talk. Because we can talk about some of that stuff now. What was now obvious challenges, but what would you say is the biggest challenge of that particular talk?
I'd have to say probably the preparation. They talk about the people who give a good talk and sound like they're just off the cuff and just having a talk or having a chat with someone. It's because they practice it so much, and that's 100% true. You have to commit to the time and the effort that it's going to take to really do a good talk. And it's honestly one of the most involved projects or individual projects I've worked on, because it was day after day practicing it, refining it, filming myself, seeing what mannerisms I needed to cut, and that. So,
well, and I've heard the statistic that it takes an average 40 to 50 hours of preparation to give an effective talk, and that always varies by person to person. But I was interviewing a medical doctor, an academic associate dean, who was telling me that he worked, I think, 7 or 8 months on his talk. So if you can imagine just the amount of craft that goes into a really good, effective talk, and it's worth it. Got to say it's worth it.
100%.
And also kudos to you, Logan, because what could have been just a very locally focused, myopic talk really was a talk about good design, a good visual design. So you made it, truly an idea worth spreading. And it was kind of funny to laugh at the situation, and then we cheered as you turned that around. But it's really all about good graphic design and flag design, and in a world of horrible logos and horrible visual design, I just can't. I know the designers that are listening, including several in my own immediate family, are absolutely cheering you on.
Cool. Good deal.
So this is a performance. So my last question, what is the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
During the talk, people started laughing at the word vexillology, or the word, in its different forms, vexillological, vexillology.
Which is what I've been doing this entire interview too. So
that was one of those spots I mentioned it earlier. The spots that I didn't find funny, but apparently you hear me call out to someone in the videos. So yeah, it's a tough word. And that's what I'm addressing there. In the talk, is someone kept laughing at that word, and it threw me off. It threw me off my game, to be honest. Something I didn't expect. I got a little bit of an inkling that there were going to be some spots I didn't anticipate were funny, in the practice run the day of, but not that word exactly. So that was very unexpected.
Well, I mean, Logan, this is if you don't mind me saying so. I mean, I could see how you might come across a little bit as the straight man, talking about a very funny situation, and you're so matter of fact about the whole thing, and you're going to let us know about vexillology and good aesthetic design and visuals, and you're pretty seriously civic minded about the whole thing. So that may have had something to do with it.
Maybe.
And you're so stinking earnest about getting these great ideas out. And so, of course, so Talk Universe, if there's somebody out there that maybe had a little too much drink, or everything's funny, or the little too much of a fresh sense of humor, you might want to just try to zone them out. As best as you can. And then again, I mean, it's kind of the Wild West out there, so it might have been more appropriate Western behavior. I'm just thinking some cowboy walking into a time portal and showing up in a modern TED Talk or something and just giggling the whole time. I don't know. But we have been talking to Logan McDougall. I've been having a little bit of an extra silly Be the Talk episode here because of a kind of a silly situation that Logan has righted. So if you want to find out more about this and connect with Logan, as well as watch his talk, How Designing a Flag Defined Pocatello, you can go to our show notes page if you don't want to type all that in. Go to BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link to several things. Number one, we will have a link to Logan's talk, which is a response to the second link, which we will have, which is the the original talk that started it all, the TED Talk by Roman Mars, in which the sacred flag of the civic sacred flag of Pocatello, Idaho, was held up as a non-example at the very end of this talk. And so Logan has taken it upon himself to issue a rebuttal, and he didn't just fight it in a TED Talk, but he redesigned the flag with help from people all over the world, and ABC News and CBS News and all kinds of media. And then he issues his response, and it's a really good primer on good visual design. So if you're working on a logo for your company, don't let your 8-year-old neighbor do that. Don't let your neighbor on the other side of the neighborhood who is a graphic design major and don't do that. And Logan will spell out the reasons why you shouldn't do that, as well as finally we will have a LinkedIn or other similar link where you can connect with Logan and tell him, hey, what a great job you did. All right, Logan, it is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe. What would you say?
if it's something you're interested in, if you want to give a TEDx talk, do it. Find your idea, refine that idea, and go do it. I can't recommend the process and just the whole thing. It was so enjoyable from start to finish. The organizers of TEDx Idaho Falls were amazing in helping us out and making sure we were successful. So if you've got an idea, just go do it. Just don't hold back. Go do it.
Logan McDougall, thank you so much for a fast interview. Went by real fast, and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe today.
Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap. I hope I didn't have too much fun with that, Logan.
No, like I said, we got the joke in Roman's talk, so we're just taking all the fun and the little story that keeps on giving. We're taking it in stride.
Yeah, well, good for you, and I hope that it's been good for the town and good for business and everything else, because not only is there power in being kind of the last and the least, or being singled out for that, but you really, you stepped up and you made it better. So good for you.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We had the Wall Street Journal hit me up a couple of weeks before TEDx Idaho Falls, and they were doing a story on city flags, so we got a couple of lines in the Wall Street Journal. Like I said, it's this little story that keeps on giving in a positive, talking about Pocatello in a very positive way. So
it's a turnaround for sure.